I have been riveted, like just about everyone else, by the images from Iran, by the massive street protests, by the outpouring of anger against the government. But with the Ahmadinejad regime cracking down on Western journalists, banning television cameras, and even note-taking, it is a story that has been singularly difficult for news organizations to cover. That's why you've been hearing so much this week, maybe too much in fact, about a website that seems to serve as the prime communications channel for the Iranian uprising, as long as you keep it short.
Twitter.
More and more tweets were appearing.
Twitter, a Twitter revolution.
Is this the first true internet uprising?
Yes, the Iranian government has completely failed in its attempts to contain images out of Iran.
Is Facebook and Twitter actually help fueling the outrage over that outcome?
We combed Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and Flickr and found that those opposing Mahmoud Ahmadinejad will not be silenced.
But is that feel-good story being oversold by the same media outlets that are relying on tweets from people they don't know and pictures they can't vouch for? And how are journalists handling the demands by some pundits that President Obama side more forcefully with the protesters in Iran? Joining us now in Atlanta, Martin Savage, former NBC correspondent who now anchors World Focus on public television. In Seattle, Michael Medved, host of The Michael Medved Show on the Salem Radio Network. And here in Washington, Margaret Carlson, chief political columnist for Bloomberg News and Washington editor of The Week magazine. Marty Savage, we just got word this morning that Iran is ejecting a BBC correspondent, Christiane Amanpour of CNN, David Engel of NBC, Jim Shutt of ABC have all had their visas revoked or not extended. And so in this situation, has Twitter become the CNN of the masses?
Well, it's a combination of internet sources, clearly. I mean, Twitter stands out as one of the primary ways that people are getting the message from the street. You have Facebook that's also being used. We found, as we try to cover the story for World Focus, that we had to reach to a number of platforms that are not considered traditional for many, many journalists here. The difficulty, of course, with Twitter is the fact that you're not absolutely certain that the person who's communicating is where they say they are. And also, as you look at all the people who are reporting using these kind of various forms of internet, they often will say things like, well, we cannot confirm this person says or represents. A lot of awkward language for journalists, because this is, of course, not the way we normally speak.
You have put your finger on it, and Michael Medved, I love Twitter, but with thousands of people churning out stuff, there has also been some misinformation that's been passed along. For example, there was a report about Mousavi, the opposition leader, being placed under house arrest, which turned out not to be true.
Well, I think that the problem with the overselling of the Twitter aspects of this story has to do with a natural tendency to emphasize the young versus old conflict in Iran. Of course, in Iran, about half the population is below the age of 25, and it's a hugely generational conflict, it would appear, and that of course adds to the drama. The problem is that it's not just a conflict between people who know how to do Twitter and Facebook and are internet savvy and those who are not. It is in many ways a conflict between the 21st century and the 12th century, and it's very striking when you hear the stories about Twitter and then you see the imagery of the Ayatollah Ali Khamenei and President Ahmadinejad praying in a style that is not normally associated with the 21st century.
Real generational class. Margaret Carlson, this does seem to be a shift from the big media to the people. I mean, without Facebook and Twitter and Flickr and these other websites, it seems to me the Iranian regime could shut down all images of dissent from that country.
They surely could, as they're throwing out reporters. There's no editor of Twitter or Facebook. Some of the best information is, for instance, at Atlantic.com, Andrew Sullivan's gotten hundreds of thousands of hits because he's gathering it all up and trying to act as an editor to verify. And by the way, the pictures don't lie.
Right.
For the most part, though, you can't fake the
when you say act as
demonstrators
editor,
in the street.
you mean in part just to act as a filter, because nobody could read thousands and thousands of these 140-character messages.
But a filter to put out information that's more reliable than the 100,000 and to aggregate it.
Marty Savage, I want to come back to the point you were making at the top about putting on information that can't be fully vetted. Let's take a look at how some CNN anchors on this network have talked about that very dilemma.
We can't independently verify what precisely we're looking at, when it was taken, or under what circumstances.
We are not able to independently confirm the claims that are being made, the representations of the video, correct?
We want to stress to our viewers it is unverified.
Can't verify, can't confirm. I mean, these are phrases we don't often hear on news networks, Marty, and so isn't that an awkward position for CNN and the other news networks?
Absolutely it is, because in some respects what it turns out is that we are voyeurs when it comes to watching events that's happening in Iran. We are gravely concerned. We're fascinated by what we see. And the other thing about these particular means of communication that we're getting from the street is that they're extremely personal. You feel it on a very personal level, and the person who's delivering that information to you is delivering it at a personal level. They're using their own phone, they're using their own camera device. Often you are seeing a very large development, but from a very narrow focus. It's sort of like the embeds there. You see a great deal of activity going on like we did in the Iraq War, but then the obvious question is, well, what does it really all mean? Where is the context here? How do I know the big picture? Is this just something happening on that particular block, or is it something that's happening all throughout Tehran or all throughout Iran, for that matter? And that's the very difficult thing, which is why you need journalists in some form to bring you that context, to bring you that touchstone of, well, here is how it all fits together.
Yeah, you know, on that question of authenticity, someone we believe in the Iranian government has actually started fake Twitter pages. For example, ABC correspondent Jim Shuda, one of those who had been reporting from Iran, somebody put up a fake page in which he said that the upper class of Iran was leading these protests. He didn't say that at all. It wasn't his page.